was a little bit of a one-side story later in the day.
Well, yeah, I mean, exactly. The Kazna V Pro game was definitely a fantastic one to see, and interesting to see how some of these teams definitely are shaping up. I mean, Seish and Stefan. Yeah? We're still muted?
How come we were muted? Really?
Stephen. Okay.
That's the best thing about the studio.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, I guess we could say, to the WGL EU Season 1 for 2015 and 2016. Pleasure to have you with us. And for those of you who are perhaps more astute, I am not Pansy. My name is Mitch Leslie. I'm here, of course, with none other than Oliver Maxfield. And how are you feeling today? Obviously, we already saw some great games on our first match day early this week. And how are you shaping up for these?
I'm feeling very good. I mean, Tuesday was fantastic. We had some awesome games. I got the impression that some of the teams were a little bit tentative, a little bit slow getting into this. But overall, I'm really happy with the games. Super happy to be into our first week of obviously Season 1. And I'm looking forward to 3 great matches. And
quickly, of course, to rehash Tuesday's matches, No Mercy. A newer team, for us at least, in the WGL EU went up against Wusa. That was Wusa's win 5-4. Kazna and Virtus Pro, Oliver, was quite a blockbuster there, but Virtus Pro edged it out towards the end.
Yeah, I mean, Virtus Pro and Kazna was great on mines. I mean, of course, Virtus Pro showed their own flair on steps and managed to bring out a couple of quick rounds, which Kazna didn't really have a reply for. And No Mercy versus Wusa was very close, as we talked about, and Penta, Strong Siema, one of the new Polish teams coming into the league, was probably a little bit more one-sided. Penta showing that they are still the top dominant force in the European League, and obviously we're very excited to see what they can deliver in future match days.
Well, of course, and yeah, Penta, you know, Strong Siema maybe didn't provide the exciting result that the games prior did. But before we get too far harping on about those games, we do have a bit of a recap of Tuesday's matches.
Welcome back to the WGL EU Season 1, brackets Season 6, but we're calling it Season 1 because we are starting afresh here.
And with Jamato coming off reload any second now, Stefan's got to be very careful.
But look at the time as well, only 10 seconds, they have to make this quick. Mapiel is right on the front of it, Jamto at least holding down that cross, bringing up Stefan. No Mercy doing what was necessary. Wusa just getting a little outdone. Here they go, Shock and Nevi going to be heading around the corner. Vertilion already in trouble, down a lot of HP. He is being focused down and he is removed. Yamto coming up big in the first opening kill. Shock overextending, trying to catch out Stefan here. They've got 6k HP to still go through. Stefan's made a run for it, but this looks like No Mercy knew what they wanted from the very start, and now Durs is in trouble. It's looking so good for No Mercy. It's the Kazna crew show. They overwhelmed, and now they get the 3-on-1. If Kusol can maybe get a cheeky kill here, I don't know if he's got time. 4 seconds till he has that shell. Coca-Cola and Povel playing well up against Hyber and Yizny. Coca-Cola going for one. They're trying to focus down Povel. He's a one-shot here. Hyber's coming back in for more. Clashing with Yizny. Doesn't get the shot he wants. Povel stays alive, but Yizny finally deals with him. But Kazna are down in numbers, and now they're down in tanks. Just Hyber and Yizny. And it's Bishop to do the final shot. Killer Pit is handling this so well up in the north, and the cap is being slowed down. This aggressive play might just work with Strong, but let's see if they can really make it stick here. They have cover, and this crazy aggressive play might just work until right there and then. Numolcho's still in the battle. Oh, this is going to be down to the wire, but I think Numolcho's going to have that, as he does. And Penta in the brawl itself.
Thank you everyone for tuning in today. It was a pleasure to have you around.
Definitely some interesting scenes from Tuesday's matches, and the Polish team, Strong Siema, maybe showing some signs of potential, but fellow Polish man, New Multi-Show, definitely shut them down on his return. Now, we've talked about those games obviously a little bit now. Let's move on to today's matches. That's where our eyes are set right about now, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to see the next 6 teams go head-to-head. We bring it up here, of course, we have Supreme, who were GGWP, going up against ASAP, who, as I've been informed, are a newer team, of course, who qualified through the Open Qualifier, and a few Romanian players in there as well, and a good mix of some well-known guys. Tornado Rocks going up against Ding. Utopia will be going up against Synergy. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you didn't read wrong. Stalker and his team are back to play. What are your initial impressions of some of these matches we've got set up for us?
Well, I have to mention straight away, that's not actually Supreme's logo. When we say under construction, it literally is under construction. obviously, with the team change from GGWP to Supreme, you have to get some things sorted out. But they've got such a fantastic lineup. For me, that's going to be a really trying match for ASAP. I mean, we haven't seen ASAP, despite qualifying through Silver Series and first. They are, you know, yet to be tested in the top echelons of World of Tanks in terms of the Gold Series. And then we have Rox versus Ding, another a top team. I mean, Rox has got so many unknown factors. They got players from Mind, they've got players from Arcade, you know, the Russian league.
Vorsic, the Annihilator?
Yeah, exactly. They haven't been tested in Europe yet, and I want to see what they can do on this platform. Ding, of course, you know, the top seed from Silver Series. They've had some practice, and they can be really dangerous. I know they've been training a lot. And finally, Utopia Synergy. Utopia, pretty much the same team we saw last season. Some players from Lucky Cracky. And Synergy, of course, I mean, the man who always can. It's Stalker, isn't it?
Absolutely. It was always very impressive, for lack of a better word, perhaps, to watch him rallying his troops. We were seeing him back in Season 2, they didn't quite make it, I think. Season 3, they were at the finals, and that was an epic, and I mean epic in terms of chronologically the length of the game, brawl against Virtus Pro in all those final matches. So before we jump into these games, let's just get a lay of the land, I guess, for how the league is shaped up so far. Let's check out, in a second, the ladder. Let's have a look at the ladder and see, you know, what, I guess, Tuesday's games have produced, and now, I guess, what these teams are going into in terms of how they're being placed. So bring it up here, and you can see a few teams obviously have plenty of zeros next to their names, but the important results are, of course, Penta and Virtus Pro getting straight victories, and Wusa, a win on the tiebreaker means that they get 2 points for that one, but it's not quite considered a win in terms of what the ladder says. And, of course, Kazna Crew and Stronk Siemka were the two teams that did fall over, and they will be down there. But, of course, after today, after the matches we see today, things will be mixed up. You can't really tell too much yet from the ladder. Yeah,
I mean, it's the first part of the first match day, so it doesn't really say that much. I mean, of course, I guess that result with Virtus versus Kazna was, you know, kind of like one of the top 3 teams playing off against each other in this first match day. But yeah, not much to say about that. I think we'll see that kind of develop over the next few weeks.
Match number 1, our first match for today, of course, is going to be Supreme versus ASAP. And as you said before, we have a lot of information about some of these newer teams coming up. We do know quite well what Supreme will be bringing, and we spoke about this off stream, I guess, and you said that you definitely expected Supreme to be able to pull out some big moves this season.
Yeah, I mean, even against ASAP, we'll get a good idea of exactly how well Supreme matches up to, I guess, what was their previous team, School Bus. I mean, we're talking about Apwao, Shanish, Nuclear, all coming in from that, I guess, top European team for a long time. I mean, we remember back in Cologne last year where they managed to beat Virtus Pro, and also in Rumble in the West where they managed to do the same thing again. So they're a top team. And obviously, they got still the best members from what was back then GG Well Played. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to what they can provide, for sure.
I mean, great expectations, even at the grand finals for School Bus, who obviously, to be fair, a lot of their core now is with Supreme. And maybe they didn't really, you know, get the result that we expected them to. And we often said, even at the outset of the season, this is a powerhouse team. And look at these players. It's an all-star lineup, essentially, as far as you could see. What are your thoughts on exactly maybe why they didn't quite reach the finish line at the finals before we jump in?
I just think the roster changes were just too close to the actual grand finals. You need some time to prepare. And, you know, having gone from, especially School Bus, a team that's been together for so long, to another team, it is a big shock to the system. And I think that's why they suffered. They managed to get beaten by Kazna Crew, also beat them at the Season 5 finals. So, obviously, you can draw comparisons there. You know, just like Na'Vi lost against, won against Virtus Pro, but then lost against Hellraisers because they used all their energies. I think Kazna won against School Bus and then lost against EL Gaming because they used all their energy. So just great play by Kazna, knocked them out, and, you know, you can't really nudge them for that.
All right, of course, their opponent's going to be ASAP. They beat Sparley, the Finnish team, to qualify. Obviously, a team that we've seen, wow, for a long time now in the WGLEU, at least in the Gold Series. So maybe a surprise for them. Agorni come over from Penta Esports. But a lot of these players are quite unknown. I mean, we spoke to Alex, our observer, and he says he knows a few of the guys. They are Romanians, so be interesting to see how they perform. But they are going to be going head-to-head in just a moment, and the first map is going to be Mines. course, Minds, Matt, we've seen already a little bit. This is its first season back, I guess, after a bit of a break.
Yep.
Talk us through the changes. Talk us through what we've seen on this one so far.
Well, it's the same map we see in, everyone sees in random battles, and the same as I guess you see in the new domination mode as well. But obviously there's two caps instead of one over towards the west, one over towards the east. We've seen basically no teams go for that eastern cap. Most of them going for that western cap, or just leaving the caps alone. I'm actually kind of surprised. I thought those caps would be a lot more of a factor than they are. Instead, the team's just going for those kind of middle brawls we saw on Tuesday. A lot of heavy tanks from the south and a lot of fast tanks from the north.
And of course, that hill always really important. It'd be interesting to see which teams are going to try and play in towards those. What are your thoughts about our lineups we're seeing here?
So as predicted, I mean, obviously ASAP starting from the south. They're using those two IS3s. We saw the same from Virtus Pro. And I think that's probably the best kind of lineup you can have, because you're never going to be able to get the hill from the north as quickly as the northern team does. So there's no point even trying, because if you do gamble, you're often going to lose and you get a lot of shots to your side. So slower tanks for ASAP, and obviously a lot faster lineup, mostly T-54s and Dynamo in a 251 there.
Nuclear just took a massive hit from Insane, the M44 player for Team Supreme, and you know, I thought pretty much with Supreme going up the hill, you'd think they'd take a little bit of damage on the cross from those IS3s, but none to speak of. They got up there essentially unscathed, but that Artie hit is definitely going to leave a big sting. He's going to feel that one in the morning. Now a shot comes in from Spezian as well towards Applewell. Artie's shots are being fired from Insane. He actually went quite low as well, so perhaps was spotted from after his initial salvo.
A little bit surprising, because he could have screwed up a little bit there. I mean, there is a bush between him and FC Dynamo, who's the one who spotted him. So maybe he's just out of the bush slightly, and Dynamo with optics managed to get that spot onto him, and obviously took a shell. A little bit lucky they didn't go down there, but yeah, good exchange for sure. I mean, Insane definitely made his team a little bit ahead with that big hit against Nuclear. One of the new players going into Team Supreme X GG well played. Now, if I was ASAP, I would simply be pushing up the hill. I mean, you've got 4 tanks there. Dynamo, Griffin, Phoenix, and Shanish are the only ones who are really going to be able to do some damage on the side. And with those T-54s, like 240 penetration, it struggles against the IS-3, and you've got to use that to your advantage.
Well, perhaps ASAP have a similar idea. Dawn and Spezian considering the push-up, and you can see Insane right in the back corner. He did take a hit, but he's actually keeping Shanish pinned down up against that cliffside at the moment now, but we might start to see the push here out from ASAP. You can see them coming up. Spezian, he takes a lot of damage, though. I mean, they're just lightweights, but they still can hit hard. 1,259 already shaved off Spezian. He does claim the hill, but at what cost? Dynamo will happily roll off in a second if he has to, and he does. Agorni taking some damage as well. Valalea not even sure if he wants to go up the hill, especially with Ron and Applewell putting shots in towards his rear end. Dawn takes another hit as well. And I mean, ASAP may have the hill, but they don't exactly seem to be dug in safely here at all. Here comes the counter push from ASAP as well, coming straight across the hillside. Griffin takes a hit, but now shots going in towards Dawn as well. And looks like Team Supreme are happy to take ASAP head-to-head.
Gorny, the star player for ASAP, will also go down. Yeah, for sure, they're at a big disadvantage. Now you see Supreme just push up the hill, take them down, and look to close off this battle.
All right, SC Dynamo Griffin coming straight up the hill. Supreme definitely struggling a little bit at the moment. The beleaguered Spezian trying to just back away, but Dynamo will seal that coffin right up. Panachin there sitting on the opposite side of the rock. May not have been spotted at this stage, but there's not going to be a hell of a lot he can do without any mates to help him out. Vale trying to go head-to-head with Shanish, but definitely doesn't have the health point advantage. Panachin not even able to assist in that manner, so Supreme just going to roll over by the looks of things, and just in supplication to Supreme, as they come straight on towards him. Here's the roll-on. Bit of ram for extra damage. And it looks like ASAP are in trouble here.
Like Panarsin actually got a disconnect, to be honest. I mean, he's just not moving, and he wasn't moving for quite some time. He's done 70 damage this battle. It looks like that was a HE shot, so he will go down as the last remaining player for ASAP. But yeah, that might have actually contributed to their loss there, to be honest, because I mean, you lose one tank, and in this game mode, you're definitely going to be suffering for it.
I mean, how important it is to have a player, especially in that kind of pivotal position, which we've seen a lot being invested in trying to take. You think back to the Kazna Virtus Pro games, Vetso and Hyber really wanted to take that area away from Virtus Pro, and I don't know, we'll have to wait and see what happened to him there. But of course, for those of you who may be a little bit confused, the colours were switched over in that game. Of course, that will be rectified immediately. However, you know, first impressions, first game of the day, obviously first game for this new Supreme lineup. I mean, are things going as expected, would you say?
I think they're going as expected. I mean, I'm not totally sure if we saw a disconnect there or not. I mean, the rules say you have to call it out before the battle starts, and then obviously it continues. But I'm not sure exactly how much of a difference that would have made on that hill push, because that's where it was won and lost. I think the idea was right to push the IS-3s up, but the T-54 should have gone with them as well. That's what Virtus Pro did yesterday, and it worked out seemingly perfectly for them. But it was the positions from, I believe, the T-37 and SD Dynamo in the T-54 who got a lot of shells onto the back of those IS-3s and slowed them down. And, you know, taking about 1.5, 2K damage within that 20 to 30 meter area is just a little bit too much to take.
Well, it definitely seems as if ASAP had decided they were going to push the hill. I mean, they had, as you said, the composition to do that. But then they sort of got a little bit indecisive there, and we saw those shots coming into their rear as well. They did push FC Dynamo off the hill, who's in the Sparpanzer U251. He left the hill, was more than happy to do that, because by then, I guess, essentially the damage was already done. So we may be getting confirmation, I think, on what is happening in the next game. But we do have a replay here for you, and this is essentially when that first push happened.
Yeah, this is basically when Supreme just has to set up for this push against ASAP, and whoever goes up that hill first and whoever connects the first shells is really going to suffer. You can see Griffin gets basically a whiff of the fact that ASAP are looking to push, so he gets out of there, gets safe, so he doesn't get surrounded by those IS-3s. I mean, T-54, it's basically just a 3-shot for an IS-3 to take down, and now the push will come out as soon as they feel comfortable. But it's so obvious of what ASAP wants to do. I mean, it was all about just Supreme setting up to counter that, and they were on the defensive side. It wasn't particularly necessary for them to push all the way up there when they see the setup from Supreme.
And your thoughts, obviously, on the tank compositions, because they were a little bit different. I mean, you can see now this is where they actually got onto the hill. This is when the final push. To what degree do you think compositions here affected the way the game worked out? Because obviously Supreme weren't taking that heavier lineup. They weren't going for the IS-3 so much as the lightweights.
No, I don't think it's necessary to take the IS-3. I believe Virtus Pro did it yesterday when they were starting from the north as the attack. They took one IS-3 because, I mean, I guess if you're thinking about it, if you IS-3 is always going to be a good tank full stop. I mean, it's just a beast to play with. So if you know you can get the hill, even from the north, and you can also bring an IS-3, you're pretty much walking away with a win, unless you really do screw up. I mean, it works, it doesn't work sometimes, but you know, it's all about playing the numbers game in World of Tanks. Yeah, RNG comes a lot into it, but it's more often not the team that plays better that wins. So, you know, that's what happened with Supreme in this round.
Brilliant. Very deep. We're going to jump into our second round in just a moment as we get things sorted out. Of course, you know, ASAP as the defenders essentially here. We talk about the hill play all the time. Hill is really important. Even the old mines or the older mines, it's essentially still the same now. Yeah. Can you reliably, as a defending team, give up that hill completely?
Well, I think you always have to have a contingency plan for it. I mean, there's two ways you can play for sure. I mean, you can either go for that hill completely, or you can play away from it and basically just have a tactic to counter a hill push from the north. And to be fair, that second option, it works out sometimes, because you have a situation where if you're playing anti-hill strat, you're basically playing anti-north strat, and that can frustrate a lot of teams. It can cause them to do all sorts of weird things.
Okay, well, in this case, we do see Supreme taking the hill yet again. FC Dynamo setting up in front of that rock in the middle. And again, ASAP with those two IS-3s rolling on forward. It'll be interesting to see when they choose to try and take this hill. And Sane, again, just trying to harass Nuclear with some shots. He does manage to avoid it this time around. Last time was absolutely devastating. But ASAP this time looked like they might maybe make an earlier push towards this hill.
Well, they've got to be worried, because Ron and Griffin are in exactly the same positions they were last time. They did a lot of damage into the back. So, I mean, Panasirian seems to be back in the game, so hopefully he can do something. But Spetsian and Dawn, a.k.a. The two IS-3 players, will have to try and back off there. And that's a bad situation for them. It's going to allow Apoel and Dynamo to potentially push up. But I honestly think that right now, maybe Insane should just wait around, just stay safe, not take too much damage, and let Insane, the team captain, do some good shells with the artillery.
This is quite interesting. ASAP actually being forced to kind of back away a little bit. Nagorny taking a bit of damage from Applewell as he went up and now exposing his rear end to Griffin and Ron, the firing squad over on that far island. He actually got his gun just damaged now as well. So he's becoming less and yes, useful into these fights. Dynamo taking some damage, but Spetsy and Dawn still holding those positions, yet to quite push up. Can they afford to have a protracted firefight in this area?
No, I don't think so. I don't think they can head all the way around. Otherwise, 2 IS3s and 1 T-54 and also Panaserian in the back will be able to do some real damage. I think Agorni, kind of a bad position for him, and a little bit of foresight would have actually helped him in that situation, because he could have seen that Griffin and Ron did the exact same thing last battle, and that's what cost him so much hit points. So I'm not exactly sure why he went there, and I'm kind of surprised Supreme didn't manage to take him down as well, since it was such a big, maybe even catastrophic positioning problem for them. But it looks like ASAP aren't crumbling. They're keeping their heads in this game a little bit and wanting to try and maybe come up with a tactic, or even just sit back a little bit.
ASAP with a slight health pool disadvantage, which says something when you're running 2 IS3s as well, mind you, with those somewhat more inflated health pools. Shanish is going hunting for Insane, or at least to do a little bit of scouting around, and actually the rest of Team Supreme are as well. Applewell behind him, FC Dynamo not too far. Nuclear holding up on that hill, but Team Supreme just trying to just trying to extend their control of this map bit by bit. Griffin and Ron still sitting tight. And what does this change of tact make you feel about it?
I think they're looking just to get a little bit of supremacy here. You know, they're going to send 3 tier 8 tanks, 3 tier 8 light tanks towards where Vale is, which actually worked pretty well yesterday. I mean, it's always a good tactic if you can make it work, but you got Vale in the teeth in the IS3s, which can really do some damage. Now Dynamo trying to do the old push up there, which would have been great, but you know, Valilia on the cross, just making sure that he can't actually get up, and also a big shell from Vale does take a good chunk out of Applewell.
Team Supreme maybe now having to look for a little bit of a different option. ASAP refusing to break under the pressure that is being applied to that central hill zone. You can actually see those IS3s are pulling back around the corner a little bit. Spetsian and Dawn as well as Valalea, just to perhaps respond to whatever shenanigans was happening over on that eastern side of the map. But Team Supreme now changing tact yet again. Shots are still winging across into these IS3s. Ron, and I think it was Griffin, doing a heck of a lot of damage. Ron still essentially with a great deal of health for a T-37. Griffin untouched. And it looks like it could be a war of attrition that Team Supreme are winning.
You'll see Supreme push off into these 3. There's absolutely no reason why they shouldn't, because Ogorni won't be able to get into the firefight. You got good crossfire from those from the T-37 and the T-54, and Vale will also in the IS3 not be able to provide that much good sniping ability in the IS3. I think Vale might even have to push down and support those tanks. And to be fair, I'm super surprised that Supreme just hasn't bit the bullet and gone for this push.
I mean, in the stark contrast to the last game, instead of going up in big explosions and smoke, ASAP seemed to just be withering away, but now that might be changed. Phoenix pushing across, cops 2 shots straight towards his hull, but Dawn is going low. Spets even lower. He's absolutely a one-shot, but there come the bouncers in. Very lucky for ASAP, but they're going to stay on their feet for the time being. But the entirety of Team Supreme's main spearhead pushing straight in towards them. Dawn and Panachin, though, getting one apiece. Ron did finally go down, that little needle in their side for the whole game. But there we go, the kills coming back on in for Supreme. Shanice, Nuclear, Griffin claiming scalps each, and Vale, the last man standing, apart from Insane.
Yeah, that was a good push by Team Supreme, very textbook. They got the initial damage, and then they could just use that to their advantage and you know, use their directional speed from those light tanks to take them down.
Well, Insane will at least set a parting gift in the direction of Applewell, as slowly but surely Team Supreme will converge on his position and dispatch of him. It seems that his ASAP setting up on towards that hill there. Indecisiveness really cost them there. It's tough to see, I guess, a little bit where their strategical direction is at the moment. It's tough to see what they want to do if there's one real voice ringing out in the team in terms of commanding them. What are your thoughts? You know, would there have been an all-purpose sort of solution? I mean, we midway through that round when those IS3s were just sort of cuddled up on the hill, taking shots from Griffin and Ron?
No, I don't think so. I think, you know, Supreme just had all the cards in their hands. The problem is, I think Mines will be an attacking side, because there's actually very little you can do on the defensive side. The kind of options you have. I mean, you either have to go with an all-in strategy, or you have to sit back and hope that the other team doesn't execute whatever they have in mind in time. So for ASAP, I would have just gone for a push in the middle or gone for an eastern side push and then got the timing correct, like we saw yesterday. But it's a very hard kind of resource games to balance, and it sometimes works out, sometimes doesn't.
So this is probably the point where ASAP could have gone. They could have tried to challenge at hill, but they sort of sat back on it. Yeah,
and it's also the point where Supreme sees that Agorni's out of position and they can do some good damage. But you could see that, I would say even at this point, ASAP has already lost this game. They're not contending the hill. Agorni's out of position. Insane has not really got any line of sight or any spots onto Spezion in the IS3 there, or Vaughn. So you can't. It's really a matter of time until Supreme takes this match, even from that point onwards. So I think ASAP just has to look alive a little bit and at least take these 2 attacking rounds as well.
Well, now, of course, as the attacking side, things changing up a little bit for them. They can maybe take at least some impetus into this game and try and build up some momentum, at least, and try and create opportunities. Because right here, this is where they really just sat back and allowed Supreme to essentially push them. Yeah,
2,000 more hit points for Supreme, even without any IS3s. That's a very clear point to push. And I would have, if I was Supreme, just ended this game a little bit earlier on when the 2 T54s and Dynamo in the 251 came away from that eastern side and joined the rest of their team in the middle, just gone straight for it, but obviously wanted to be more safe and not sorry later on if they did make any kind of timing error.
Well, and you can see here that the entirety of Supreme just pushed straight onto them, and that, as they say, ladies and gentlemen, was the way the cookie crumbles. But now, of course, a bit of a change up, as I said, on the attacking side for ASAP. Maybe will they go for a more offensive lineup? I mean, I don't know if you think it's likely for them to take an artillery piece again. Will they give up the hill? I mean, we've seen teams do this really well. Casner Crew giving up the hill and then putting a lightweight right at the northern side of the map, just on that little hill to be able to do damage. If you're playing, are you, as an attacking team, are you definitely preferring to muscle onto that hill and control that? Or do you think there's as much merit in sitting back off it?
I think you definitely want to be muscling onto that hill. I mean, you can always win a firefight. You just have to engage it properly. If you're not going for the hill, then you want to be getting some good cross shots onto the attacking team that are going up the hill. And if you are attacking, you're going forwards, you have all the cards. I mean, you're the one who got the better positions, or you can bluff for the better positions at the same time. But again, I think as we go through the season, we'll see the defending sides innovate more. I mean, on Himmelsdorf, at the beginning, it looked almost hopeless for the attackers going into these matches, but it progressed through, and towards the end, we saw, for instance, in the Russian side, we saw Na'Vi actually winning more than 50%. Same with Hellraisers and Virtus Pro. They showed us that if you can, always go for those fights when you're at a disadvantage, and at least you can win in terms of skill.
Okay, well, we'll be seeing our a third round, I guess, in just a moment. It's going to be interesting, of course. As you said, sometimes it's just about taking the fight. A lot of teams just sort of allow games to happen and crumble around them, and that's kind of the impression we're getting a little bit from ASAP right now. So, ladies and gentlemen, of course, if you are at home and you do want to get involved, merely is it here, but of course, we're still cranking out the social media stuff. All you have to do is give it a hashtag WGLEU to get involved with the conversation. We're always interested to see what your thoughts are. I mean, what are your thoughts here? I mean, do you really think ASAP have what it takes? We'll have to see.
Well, we'll have a good time now because ASAP gets to go on the attack, which over the last couple of parts of match days, I guess you could call it, we've seen them, the attacking side being better, but they are going for a completely different tack. They're going all over towards the east, and they might have caught run out, but where's the information gone?
There's a lot of spots going out. In fact, Ron has seen almost the entirety of Supreme now. He's going to take plenty of damage for it. But where is the response going to come from? You can see that Supreme have taken this hill quite happily, and they're going to perch up there and throw shots down. Ron has stayed pretty healthy considering the situation. He's now going to get rammed up and shot to pieces. And ASAP have caught themselves up in this eastern village, and they've given away the entirety position of their team.
Not a great start for ASAP at all. I mean, Supreme knows exactly where ASAP are. Agorni's pretty much down to 20%. And yeah, the rest of their team is pretty healthy, and the LTTB is down, but Agorni might just fall as well here.
losing not just a Gorny, but of course a heck of a lot of information being given over freely. Valilea is trying to cross back through those streets unscathed, and there will be some more shots coming out. Nuclear to take one in response. Spertian and Dawn yet to be significant factors in this game. Now, though, they turn their eyes towards this hill, and they will see FC but Dynamo crossing. Their guns will not be trained on him, though. He will be able to get past into the safety of the rocks without being shot, but that is not going to stop the push of ASAP. Now, Spertian leading the way. A bounce from Phoenix there. Applewell looking to put one into the track if he can, as they do come up the hill. It's going to be a little bit of an overmatch, to be honest, in favour of Suprema. Those IS-3s do hit damn hard. There's Valilea in the 54 lightweight. Panachin takes a shot as well. They're going to slowly inch their way up that hill. Vale won't be too far behind at all, but ASAP have got to get this done quickly.
ASAP are definitely going to go up the hill because they definitely got the overmatch for those IS-3s.
Let's see if that's a possibility, though. Panachin getting stunted, I guess, from trying to climb that hill. Valilea going fairly low as well. The IS-3s bringing those big BL9s to bear, and Spezia will pick up Applewell. Shanice does get Panachin in response, and here's the flex from the T-54s. Dawn going a little bit low down to half health. Valilea is incredibly crippled in. You can see Nuclear is just sort of sitting right around the corner. He's going to force them into a crossfire situation. Spezia going to take one in the rear from Phoenix there, and FC Dynamo now joins the party. Vale did still take on Nuclear, but Dawn is finding himself a little bit on his own in this little area. Dynamo doesn't want to expose his back to Vale and Spezia here, but he will still get picked up. I mean, ASAP a little bit lower on health points here, but it's still a 3v3 scenario.
Those couple of IS-3 bounces definitely gave ASAP away into this game. They just need to take down Shanish and Phoenix if they can, but Phoenix almost on full health HP. It's going to be hard.
Spezia lucky bounce there as well. Phoenix now taking 620 damage in a very short space of time. Spezia won't have the quicker reload here, but he is pushing forward nonetheless quite bravely. And now Phoenix picks up Spezia. Vale trying to push up as well. That's a good IS-3 hit towards Shanish, but will it be enough? Vale going quite low. There we goes. The pick up on towards was Vale it was, and now Dawn is the last man standing. He needs to hit one good shot now, but his reload time, will it be with him now? All the T-54s need to do is team up on towards him. This is tight. A lucky bounce of Dawn could mean the round for ASAP here, but Griffin is coming up as well. He's still got a good half health pool. And they did both miss each other now. Even if Dawn gets the bounce, Griffin is going to be coming up. There's not a heck of a lot of armor on the back of an IS-3, and it looks like Griffin will secure that one with a quick execution.
I love it when players are so nonchalant about those shots, but you can easily bounce the IS-3 there. And if you did, it could see Valilea actually take that round. But great initial play onto the hill. I thought ASAP did well there. Of course, the problem was that they lacked that T-54. And, you know, you got to consider as well that Supreme had 6 tier 8s and 1 tier 6. So they had that tier 8 advantage as well. Sorry, they had the tier 7. So I think for ASAP, just a little bit overcommitment towards that eastern side. And then they had to kind of collect themselves and reinitiate onto the hill, because there's no reason why you put 4 tanks over there just to take down an LTTB.
Do you really think it was the point of it, to take that LTTB? Do you think they maybe had a strategy in place to work on that east side? I mean, how many east side pushes do you know on the attacking side to really be effective?
Well, we saw it on Tuesday, but only later on in the match. We didn't see it so early on, so I'm kind of surprised. But you know, they just lost too much in that push towards the east, and too much information from Supreme there as well.
So this is where they're pushing up onto the hill, and this is maybe the turning point of the game, do you think?
Yeah, I think they did pretty well, ASAP. You can see the hit points on the top of your screens are just severely in favor of Supreme, and it's a numbers game, so it's going to be hard for them to get into this battle. But you can see ASAP really fighting, some great individual play as well. Does gift them a 1 versus 1 at the end, and they just needed a Gorny in that T-54 to stay alive. But the IS-3s do a great job, and you can see Dawn there actually bouncing a shell is exactly what you want from an IS-3, bouncing Phoenix. So I just think ASAP just lacks a little bit right now, and you know, being a new team, that's hardly surprising.
Well, I guess it was that 1v1 situation here where it was just so very close, but had ASAP not lost that tank early in the village so cheaply, things could have been so much different as well. And as you said, you know, one team's taking, you know, a bunch of tier 8s and the 1 tier 6 as opposed to a team with 2 tier 7s. Is that really a significant advantage by numbers? Do you really think it makes a huge difference? Or does it change the way you approach the game if maybe you're the team with the 2 tier 7s?
I think the 2 tier 7s definitely do more damage. I mean, there's not a massive difference between tier 7 and tier 8 in the game, but it just depends as well on the players. I mean, for instance, Virtus Pro, they pick the T37 or whatever tier 6 because Creates is not particularly that great when it comes to the tier 8 tank. So, you know, it depends on that dynamic and what you want to play for. But in my opinion, I think you can be more comfortable in the abilities of 6 tier 6s and 1 tier 6 than anything else. And there's a lot of benefits a tier 6 brings to you. For instance, they got better camo value than a tier 7. So it depends on the map, I guess, as well. Yeah.
Okay, well, surely we'll be able to see if ASAP can actually take it to Supreme and put that extra map on the board. And as you bring up tier 6s, it's important to note that a lot of the callers or the captains from these teams are actually in those tier 6s or sometimes artillery. In fact, Insane is the captain for ASAP. He likes to play that arty when he can. And of course, Ron does do a lot of calling. I mean, it was Karitz that did a fair bit of calling as well for Virtus Pro. So, you know, it was kind of like a bit of a throwback to the old, the T1s, where
tier 1s, yeah.
often the captains, you know, if they lost their lives cheaply, it wasn't a big deal, and then they can sort of watch the rest of the match. But here we go. We are into our 4th round. A chance for ASAP to at least get 1 round on the board from this map. What are we seeing early on?
So a very similar setup we saw last time from ASAP, the 4 T54s, the tier 6 artillery, and the 2 tier 8 heavy tanks, the IS-3s. And I guess the big part from Team Supreme would be that Waffle-Tiger, that Waffle Tiger, played by, in my opinion, one of the best players, if not the best player in the league, Nuclear, obviously coming over from School Bus. He's going to be an interesting factor here. I'm not exactly sure how they're going to use him, but it looks like they're going to use him in the back lines to provide some damage on any tanks that want to push up the hill.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen some island play from Waffentragers. I think it was on Tuesday actually as well. So teams are mixing it up with that tank, sometimes taking the bigger gun, which is not always as preferable in terms of fire rate. We'll have to see how Nuclear wants to use that one later on. But this time, Valalea at least has got himself up the hill. And these IS-3s are afraid of the damage, by the looks of things, that they're going to be taking as they try and cross. And they're doing so very, very slowly. I mean, Applewell is in, close with that IS-3, just on that little hillock. So if they do try and push up, he will have some shots there as well. Panachin in prime position up on top of that hill. See if he can spot out any enemy units.
I think for now, ASAP is just wanting Insane to do some damage. They're obviously worried about going forwards via Nuclear because the Waffentrager's got an amazing camo value. It's truly insane. It's even been nerfed because it's so incredible. So you're not going to be able to spot it even if there's no bush in front of it, or it's just standing in a bush but too close for it to actually count when it shoots. So I would be scared if I was ASAP. But at the same time, when it comes to the brawls, I mean, clearly he's using, I think he's using the 12.8. So yeah, it's just going to struggle in those brawl situations. So I think ASAP's got the best chance they've had in these last 4 matches to actually take a win now. And if I was them, I would be moving away from where that ball stick is and moving towards where it isn't. And, you know, that looks like the Lighthouse Island is the best for that.
Shanish and FC Dynamo are denying that Southern Island as well, one that Team Supreme love to use on the attacking side in this first couple of rounds. So there'll be no opportunity really for ASAP to get any of those flanking shots on towards him now, and still waiting to see what the big move is going to be from ASAP. They are, as you said, thinking about that Lighthouse Island. There will be no shortage of opposition to push into, though, of course. Applewell will be watching with that IS-3, the 39, the RU-251, 2 tanks that maybe can't stand up in a prolonged firefight, but at least they can have some shots and get out if they have to. I mean, Nuclear will have shots, and here comes the push from ASAP. Agorni's going to be leading the charge straight down in towards the water. Everyone concerned about shots potentially coming across them here, and so they should be. Agorni takes a little bit of damage as he gets across, but essentially fairly unscathed. ASAP make it to this island now. Do they sit back on that lower side? Shots coming in from the hill as well, and Vale takes a quick double tap. Panachin takes one as well from Phoenix, if I'm not mistaken. And that's a heck of a lot of damage going to ASAP for very minimal response. Only Chanish is one really copying it right now.
Yeah, good damage by ASAP. A very good initiate. They also got that first kill as well. That's a big deal. Now they just have to keep Insane putting the pressure on Waffentrager. Every time he gets spotted, he has to be hitting the shells.
Dynamo picks up Vale, and he's still standing. The last of the tanks that were seated on that sort of island, you can see that Applewell still in that same position. Dynamo picks up Valalea as well. And that initial push of ASAP essentially seems to have been splintered on this island. Insane still firing. You can always see his reload time counting down as how frequently he's trying to fire shots. Dawn and Spezia essentially were kept out of that fight by the presence of Supreme on that hill. Now Griffin wants to take the fight himself. Goes towards Spezia, and he will clean him up there with that shot. 5100 deadly in those quick engagements. And Panachin gets taken out by Phoenix. Dawn, the last man standing, been shielded from the action all game, but his time has come.
You can see the absolute ferocious coordination of Team Supreme just caught ASAP by surprise, and the hill push at the same time as the island push was fantastic, and I don't think Dawn really stands a chance right now.
No, he's just going to get cleaned up. Griffin and Applewell. Griffin obviously waiting on his rather lengthy reload, but can be a body to shield if Applewell does require that one more, and that IS-3 of Dawn will go down. ASAP tried 4 times to make an opening, to create some sort of opportunity, and 4 times they have failed. Now Dynamo is going to be coming forward and trying to ensure that he gets that kill. Dawn will still get one from the grave. But there we have it, 4-0 to Team Supreme, and we expected they'd be dominant. You definitely were singing their praises and what you expected to see from them as a team. ASAP struggling, though, to come up with the answers to the questions that Supreme are asking. For
sure. I mean, the thing is, ASAP just hasn't had a lot of time to actually prepare for this season, so they just look like they're not quite prepared for what Team Supreme are offering. Every single time they made a move, Supreme had all the answers. They knew what they were going to do. They knew what they had to do to counter. And altogether, the Team Supreme look like they're a team who feels more comfortable on Mines. For me, Mines is got so many unique elements that you really do have to feel comfortable on the map to actually win it.
What went wrong with this push here? ASAP, they took the opportunity to try and make a fight, but it didn't take long for them to get decimated.
Well, they did a good initial damage onto SE Dynamo. That's a problem. I don't see exactly why Supreme put the 2-5-1 there, because it's a hold down position and you can penetrate its turret a lot very easily. So Shanish goes forwards and the MX-1390 gets taken down, but you can see how much damage they're receiving for their trouble. Now, I guess the interesting part would be where Griffin comes in, because I didn't expect the 5100 to actually work out. But it works out very nicely, actually taking down Spetsian in the IS-3. So the lineup from Supreme was just great, and every element kind of had its own nuance, and it worked really well together.
It definitely seemed like a bit of a mixed bag of tanks in that game, especially and Applewell holding that bottom corner on the IS-3, eventually choosing to get involved in the fight on the hill. But this is obviously when Griffin decided to make the push, and that was when Dawn, I guess, was essentially on his own there. Those IS-3s really seemed like they were kept out of the game for a lot of it.
Yeah, the IS-3s just... It felt to me like Supreme knew where the IS-3s would go. They knew what they had to do to counter it, and they could worry about all the other slightly more unpredictable elements of the map. And if I was ASAP and I would go back to the drawing, and I was going back to the drawing board after the games tonight, I'd be saying simply, okay, so we need to be a little bit more quick and snappy on this map. Why do we not go for the Lighthouse Island like most teams do on Mine straight away? Go straight across. Don't let the other team get those positions on that plateau and just push up through where that Borsig was, where the T-54 lightweight was, the 5100. And you can just start pressuring and encroaching on the enemy's territory, as opposed to, going left to right and kind of dragging yourself around the map. And you could see it when they were sitting in the far corner of the Lighthouse Island. Gorney was kind of almost saying, "Come on, guys, let's go forwards, let's push." And that's not the thing you want to be doing. You want to be synchronized.
Well, we're going to have to wait and see if ASAP can maybe find some of that synchronization. We'll be on to our next match very, very soon. But for now, we're going to take a quick break, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go too far. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the WGL EU. Hi, I'm Uber. I'm here joined by Laughter, of course, as always. And we are knee-deep in our first game for the day. It's Supremacy going up against ASAP. And ASAP so far have struggled to really keep up.
Yeah, they just haven't provided anything that's really tested Supremacy. I mean, I hate to say it, but a 4-0 scoreline often is indicative of a very one-sided match. And the games, apart from, I guess, that last one, weren't even that close, and that last one was questionable. But you know, you got to give ASAP some credit, some leeway. They only just joined us from that open qualifier a few days ago. I mean, not even a week ago yet. So, you know, they're still getting into this. They're still getting into the kind of mentality of that Gold Series. So.
Yeah, and you can see definitely a bit of hesitation, a little bit of uncertainty for them. I mean, they are going up against possibly one of the best teams in Europe. We'll have to wait and see that, of course. But they have a chance here to bring some rounds back into their favour. The second map, which we're going to see in just a moment for today, will be Himmelsdorf. Now, of course, a few changes to Himmelsdorf since we last saw it. Most importantly, the positioning of that northern cap. Just how much does that change this game?
Changed it completely. It's almost a different map. Just switching it over 20, 30 meters towards the right side it's made it into an attacking heavy map where the defender's the one who's always got to bring the fight to the other team, and the attacker can kind of make a few mistakes or, you know, at least play normally without having to try something really unusual. Yesterday we saw, for instance, Wusa. They struggled a little bit for sure against No Mercy, but eventually they managed to bring it 2-2. So I guess that game kind of was like an even game, but you know, it is just on the teams then more than anything else. So an attacking heavy map, big changes with the caps, and it's just going to be about how defending teams can adapt now.
We actually saw a kind of wacky game on Himmelsdorf, and one of those ones where Wusa were attacking. They went actually for the western cap. And in that case, when No Mercy took 2 Tigers, sat them sort of back in the train line. I mean, for a defending team, can you still reliably hold that sort of that 3-line hold when you're defending that northern cap, or do you need to try something a little bit more innovative?
I think you can. I don't think you can take 2 Tigers full stop, because, and especially not in those positions. I think the problem in that game was that they had all their tanks spread up from like basically the 1 line to the 7 line, and they couldn't get enough resources to stop that western cap quickly enough, and that was their problem twice. So, you know, they just have to make sure that they at least have a chunk of their resources in one position.
All right, so of course now over to our second map. It's going to be ASAP in the red attacking and Supreme in the blue defending. Tank picks are out. 350-100 from ASAP. Anything else that's standing out to you here?
Well, you got the Waffentrager from Nuclear. Maybe he's going to be the man in charge of that vehicle, because of course he used it on the defensive side on the third match of the previous map Mines. So let's see what you can do. I mean, it's not unusual to see it on this map. We've seen it a lot from the defenders, normally in the D2 area where you can shoot through the building towards the 8 line. So interesting start from ASAP. He got the T21, the View Range Beast, 390 of course on that one. You can really spot the whole map. Not exactly sure if it's necessary to bring it onto Himmelsdorf, where spotting is kind of limited, but as long as you keep it on the hill, I guess it works.
Already Supreme bringing back a lot of their forces. Actually, they were initially on the western cap, but spotted very little. They've left a 50-100 there, but cleverly enough, they've managed to maybe read in a little bit towards this push from ASAP. Of course, it's a stacked lineup here, but Spetsy's going to poke his head around the corner, and Shanish will already send him packing now. You're an attacking side, ASAP. You know Supreme have got a set defense. Can you push on, or do you need to change everything?
I think you can just push on. I'm not exactly sure why Spetsian just stopped there. He gave Team Supreme so much time to basically get themselves together and get themselves ready for this push on from the IS3s. But the 5100s are coming from behind. Spetsian, though, down to half hit points. But also at the same time, you got 5100 out of position from Supreme, the 12T out of position. The Waffentrager needs to get into a crossfire position into the middle. He was late for that and hasn't hit a shell so far. So I think ASAP has a good chance right now.
Okay, Door now As you just said, poking across the position the Waffentrager previously held. Panachin is there with him. ASAP may be thinking they want to bring their forces together into a bit of a fist before they try and press through here. A lot of early damage going over towards ASAP. You can see Spezian down to 7-6-4. Two IS-3s trying to fire on the move with their BL9. It's not going to be easy to connect those shots. And, well, they didn't actually connect any, especially with Shanish hold up in that little hull down position over towards that northern cap. Now Ron going for a little bit of a flank. Gets a cheeky shot towards Panachin. Not a heck of a lot of armor on those 5100s. And, well, the 12-ton will get at least a little bit of a sting in here. Spotted out. Now it has a good idea, I guess, of where ASAP are set up. Can Supreme afford to pincer here? Or do they wait for for ASAP to push onto them?
I think they have to wait. I mean, the thing is, ASAP's got 2 out of 3 elements, in my opinion, which are important on the attacking side: control of the 8 line or the 1-2-3 line, and that light tank on the hill to stop Ron rotating around with his light tank. So I think honestly, Supreme has to be careful that they don't be too decisive and actually push into a little bit of a trap. I mean, you've got Spezian, Panasirian, and it's too obvious to go for Spezian, even with that 12-ton behind. So, I mean, you can see Suprema flexing and struggling a little bit, and the fact that ASAP hasn't gone for a cap in such a, despite being in the position to do it, it's kind of worrying Supreme there, but Vale does eventually get that one sorted.
Dawn pushing up, does cop a shot from Applewell almost immediately, but he will sit himself on the capture point, and that will half the time, of course, that it needs to take. Vale takes a hit, forced to pull back, then back forward he is, and Applewell is sitting and holding that corner, and his reload time is really the only factor at the moment that's going to govern where the damage is happening in this locality. Griffin is moving back up towards the side. Dawn puts one in towards Applewell as well. There's a heck of a lot of damage between those two 5100s if they bring those their 105s, I think, guns to bear. Cephas and Valaleia off towards the side. Spezian super low as well. ASAP seem a little bit indecisive again.
Yeah, they do. You have to go forwards. They have to try and, you know, keep Supreme on their toes and a little bit of pressure, but you know, Ron's gone down on that 12-ton. Vale is finally got himself in a position where Dynamo can't hit him. He can hit him just on the side of that turret, but the IS-3's you know, accuracy won't guarantee that shot. But they're just taking ages. I'm not sure why Cephas is so scared. He just has to side scrape against Applewell, and it's totally weird that they put Dawn there instead. As long as you side scrape, Applewell will eventually lose out on that battle, and Cephas will get away with that one scot-free, and that's why you can see Shanish push forwards a little bit, and why Phoenix and Griffin go around the corner, because they know they'll lose if they don't do anything.
Here is the push, of course. Time was ticking down. Dawn actually doesn't have any capture progress on him, so he's going to be able to shield Cephas for the moment, but Cephas takes 2 big hits as well, and this was the pincer that we were talking about. Supreme not in good enough positions to really wait for ASAP to come, and now they have to act. Cephas very low. Shanish had 3 in the chamber still, and he's trying to do as much as he possibly can with those. Now he's going to be forcing ASAP back. Valaleia back around towards the corner. Dawn very, very low out in the open. He's going to get back as well. Cephas is low, but he's got one more shot, and he's going to send it with FC Dynamo's name carved into the side of it. But it's not a whole lot he can do. His team has definitely abandoned him. And of course, you can see Insane with a bit of flex through mid on that T21.
But we missed out the action on Panasirian, who did absolutely fantastic work in that 5100, pretty much hitting every shell and taking down a 5100 from GG Well Play. I believe that was Applewell. So great work by him, and despite a good little bit of flex from Supreme, actually ASAP are in a decent position. I mean, the HP is severely in favor of Supreme, but they do have those 5100s coming off reload.
All right, well, there's the shot from Nuclear, and we know it's always got to be nasty to be on the receiving end of that one. And that was Valaleia, I think, who hit the deck. Dawn now is a one-shot to an IS-3. A low roll might keep him alive, but he's going to have to back away as well. Shanish and FC Dynamo still looking quite healthy. They will sweep through and pick up Cephas, and there's only 320 points of health left on the entirety of ASAP, and 1 tank, and that is Dawn. He's up against 4. Little by little, ASAP have just run out of players. Dawn has run out of friends, and now they're running out of time.
Yeah, Griffin's going to finish that one off. No, Shanish steals it from him, and it's going to make a 5-0 scoreline for Supreme.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a tough start for ASAP here in the WGLEU. They showed moments, as you said before. There were a few maps where you sort of took it aside and said, actually, ASAP are in a reasonably good position here. They're looking all right. That map, and we'll get some replays in a second for you, that map, it seems like they never really had an advantage in health points. It always seems like there was free damage happening. I mean, even as they came down the hill, it was Shanish in the hull down position, putting free shots into them. Is this an avoidable thing? Is this something that you can tailor your approach a little bit to make sure that you're not being in a deficit before you even start the fight?
Yeah, they have to not take so much damage when they're not really doing anything. And then they had that mistake where they put the 5100 and not Cephas in the IS3 in the capping position. That should have been immediate, and Vaughn in the 5100 as well in that position wasn't great. And I also thought, putting a whole 5100 in the form of Panasterian to first kill Ron and then keep control over the middle, a little bit unnecessary. And I think he could have been there a little bit quicker.
So here's that initial push down the hill, and I mean, I think it was one of the players already took a hit, and then they go down the road, and as you said, there was a little bit of a moment where they hesitated, and this is those 3 IS3s now pushing down. A one shot into, again, it's a second one going over towards yet another player. That was Spetzi, and they're taking 2 shots. Even just in basic maneuvers here, they're taking damage, and they push sort of up in towards his hole, and we did say, as you said, Panachin was holding that 8 line with the 5100. You can see on the map they pushed those 2 5100s up there, and then it looked like Ron was like catnip to Panasin for a moment. He stopped moving. He was no longer pushing up the 8 line. But what impact did that have over the rest of the match? You sort of touched on it, but what were the implications?
It was just too slow. I mean, he should have been there, just on the D line, just going up and dealing with the Waffentrager and Applewau and Griffin in the 5100 maybe. I mean, the thing is, Nuclear in that Waffentrager did about 2.3k damage. Spezian, on the other hand, did 364 damage. So you can see the difference is a little bit too much. I mean, yeah, okay, there's always going to be one player who only does like 2 shots. I believe the lowest player from Supreme did about 800, 900 damage. But, that's enough to take down half of another tier 8 tank. So I just think a little bit too much free damage from ASAP. And just a little too tentative to actually go for the cap. And you can see the 5100 there. That's fair enough. We've seen that before. But then we have this 5100. Why have that one there? You can have that in a more damage-dealing position, like, for instance, where the IS3 is behind. Like, that IS3 on the far right should have been the 5100 position, and they should have just switched around, because what you need to deal with a pushing 5100 push is another 5100 plus whatever you have there, maybe an IS3 turning around to when he's, not capping anymore. So, not just maybe some bad tank positioning as well didn't help out.
Well, ASAP obviously taking this one back to the drawing books for their first game, going up against, again, as we have said before, a team that is touted to be at least one of the top 4. But here's the last moments here of that match where Cephas was sort of forced to get out. ASAP was so split by this point.
Yeah, you could see the hit points at the top there, just not great for ASAP. And then, that was a free kill as well for Supreme. And then it kind of gets they get another free kill on Cephas, not on Cephas, on Valalea. And then by that time, it's already game over. It's some more free damage coming out, 1-for-1 exchange. But then you got Nuclear, who you're never going to be able to exchange well. And, he peeks and gets the kill. So, just some individual mistakes for sure.
Okay, so we've spoken a fair bit about ASAP, but let's talk about Supreme as well. Going forward, especially with your prediction of them being a potentially very strong team, what information can you sort of glean from this match? I mean, who's looking good and who's not so flash right now?
I think they're all looking good. You've got to point the finger at Ron. I mean, how much is he providing to the team? I think he's doing well. But you don't want to. Hate to say it, you don't want to be like Virtus Pro, where you have Kreitz who always has to play a tier 6 tank. You want a player who can lead and also play a tier 8 tank. I mean, Arclit is a great example. A guy who came from artillery. He went through the tier 6 tanks to tier 1 and still, for instance, won the Season 2 finals with an IS3 back when he played for Synergy, Team Dignitas at the time. So, he made that transition, and I think that's a transition Ron also needs to make for future games.
Okay, well, we're going to have to shut the door on that particular game. Of course, Supreme, should I say, with an absolute roaring start to their season. When we come back, though, we'll have a game of 2 teams we haven't seen too much of. It's going to be Tornado Rocks going up against Ding. Don't go too far. We'll be back soon.